Ready to rock. So today should go pretty quickly. It is part 3 of the summer table, summer series, kind of the moderation 365 program protocol that I learned several years ago. And basically it's how I eat now. And I wanted to share it with you because I know that this can be a challenging time of year. It's not the only challenging time of year, but it can be. And give you actual tools on how to navigate some of the yummy stuff and feeling like you're not having to give up any results or having to kind of white knuckle your way through um, summer and not be able to really enjoy it the way that you want to. So let me pull this up, make sure I've got that, make sure I've got that. You guys can see it. So again, this is part of the Moderation 365. It's an actual protocol that and a course that I went through with one of my coaches. And it's really a method. So instead of counting macros all the time, and it's not that I'm against that, I obviously as a coach do have my clients doing that from time to time, especially in the beginning. But it's how you transition to like, how do I make this work for the rest of my life? And without feeling like you have to count everything and stress about food. So the first part we're going to talk about is food pressure and pushers and of course booze. And I'll share a little situation that occurred this last weekend with myself. So here's what shows up at the table. Here's what some of this sometimes looks like is when you are eating or drinking what you feel you need to avoid offending someone or making others feel better about their own choices. Anybody ever do this? Hello? I'm raising my hand because it happened. It happens and it happened this weekend. And I'll tell you about it in just a second. And it's not something that I normally do, but it happened. And even as it was happening, I'm like, what's wrong with you? So it does happen. And I want to give you some tools to be able to navigate that and be able to just be aware when you're doing it. So calorie and drink matching. I used to do this when I would go back to Arizona and I would do this with my daughter. Margaritas, right? Like we'd match margaritas. If she had another one, I'd have another one. Like we would, you know what I mean? And so it was kind of weird until I realized that I was doing it. So it's like a kind of a, I'll have what she's having. And so if somebody else has more to eat or if someone else has another drink that you kind of like latch on to what other people are doing to kind of fit in and not be the one that people are taking a look at. And then this happens too, and it happens to me too, is when someone comments about your plate or your drink choices. So if you are trying, if you guys has ever happened to you, where you're like trying to like enjoy yourself, but you're also making good choices. So you're not like overloading your plate and you're focused on getting some protein in there. You're focused on maybe getting some vegetables. You're not eating a ton of the extra, gooey, fatty, sugary stuff. And it's on there, but it's in a smaller portion. And then somebody makes a comment about your plate. I can tell you this happens fairly regularly with me. People will comment because they know what I do. So they will make comments about my plate. And so I want to give you tools on how to navigate this a little bit better. So the first is, when we talked about this, I think it was in the last one, is the difference between decisions and choices and also discernment. So you do want to pick your nutritional battles. There is no perfection. Again, that's what I'm going to share with you what kind of happened with me this last weekend, and ask yourself, what could I take or leave? And I did do this. I did at least do this part. What can I take or leave? The other one is realizing it's not about you. So how one person eats or drinks has nothing to do with how you should. So you kind of have to catch yourself because their choice doesn't make you bad or better. If they're loading up their plate, it doesn't make you better. If you're doing something, it doesn't make you worse. Whatever they're doing is what they are doing. And this one you kind of have to watch too, if you have a partner who eats very differently than you have to get to a place, or I offer you getting to a place where, yes, you care about that person, but what they're doing is on them and it's their business and they have their own stuff that they're going through and choices that they're making. And it's not about you. And just because you're making certain choices doesn't necessarily make it better, right? So kind of catching yourself in these moments and then asking yourself if someone else's choices trigger you, why? What are you making that mean? Because the reality is it's not your job to police anyone. Really, the reason that that happens in most cases is that it's so much easier to police someone else than to spend that energy policing ourselves. We don't like to police ourselves. We would rather police someone else. That out there, right? So in these moments, it's really just kind of about doing a quick scan and saying, okay, what's happening and why is this happening? So I will give you, we'll go into like what to do about it, but I will share a couple things that one that happened this weekend and something that happens on a pretty regular basis with me is we went out to the West Seattle, what do you guys call it? The fair, what's the summer thing that they had this weekend? Are you sitting at a barbecue? My husband, these are good things to think about. Yep, they are. I had to catch myself on it. Wait, guys, what is that? The summer, hold on, put it in the chat. What's it called? The street fair. Thank you, Courtney. I don't know why I could menopause moment. I've been, well, I don't know, we go probably every other year. It is cool. It's all right. I could live without it. I like whatever. And one of Michael's friends had sent him a message, and I do love this particular friend. I get along really well with him. And he was like, hey, we're going to go down and get something to eat at Harry's. And then they have live music and we're going to go out there. They're really big fans of live music. And do you guys want to go? And Michael is an extrovert. Michael loves to be out. He loves to be around people. And so did I really want to go on a Saturday night? No, I really didn't. But I knew that as a partner, this is something that keeps him happy. And I was like, yeah, we can totally go. That's fine. I wasn't paying attention to the fact that his friends are night owls. And so is Michael. And so when they were talking about they were going to go grab something to eat and then meet out there, we met them out there at a little after 8. And when they got there, they were like, hey, the people we want to watch are going to be on until about 10. And in my head, I'm like, I don't want to be out at 10 o'clock. I get up. I'm awake at 4 in the morning. Like, why would I want to be out at 10 o'clock at night? This is stupid. Like, I don't even want to really be here. And I was a little irritated about it at first. But I was like, okay, whatever. We'll walk around and get whatever. So we walked around for a little bit, chatted. And then they were like, hey, we heard about Matador. You want to just go hang out there and get a drink? And of course, Michael's like, hey, margarita. And I'm like, fantastic. Whatever. And as Jess and anybody that's not here in Seattle, that is a Mexican food restaurant. And I normally like Matador occasionally, but not at 9 o'clock at night. So we're walking over there, and in my head, I'm just like, I'm just going to get water. Like, I definitely don't want to drink because it's going to mess with my sleep. And I'm already having an issue. I had a good dinner before we went. And then we had some ice cream. I got a scoop of ice cream while we were walking around. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm good. I don't really need anything else. I haven't had their skinny margarita, Heather. I will have to try that one out. In the past, I've always gotten their Cadillac margarita or their blood orange one. And that's just the thing though, right? So as we're walking in the door, Michael's like, and you're going to get your margarita. And I think the pressure of feeling like, I think part of it is not making him uncomfortable. And also, when we have gone out with this couple before, she is someone who will, it's very odd because she's in great shape. She works out too, is she will make comments, little small ones, about my plate. Oh, this is low sugar, or I get this all the time, not necessarily from her. You're so skinny. You should just eat anyway. Like you could probably eat any. People always are making these comments. And generally because they know what I do and they look at me, they're like, you can just eat anything. And I'm like, that's not true at all, right? And even if I could, I don't like the way it makes me feel. And so I was sitting there, and in my head, I ran through this scenario where normally I would be like, I'm just going to have some water. Like, I'm fine. And in that position, I'm fine with that choice. For whatever reason, in that moment, I didn't want to be the high maintenance girl. I hate that. I didn't want to be the high maintenance girl where everybody's like, we're all having a drink and you're sitting here drinking water. And it made me feel uncomfortable. That's truth. It made me feel uncomfortable. So I ordered a sangria with the plan to sip on it. And then they were like, what do you want to order? And I'm like, I'll just nibble on whatever. And they ordered some chips and salsa that came. And then Michael was like, you want guacamole? And I'm like, whatever you want, that's fine. And then his friend ordered a big plate of nachos. Um, and they were talking and chatting. And I'm just kind of like, this is just not what I wanted to do at all. And so I did kind of figure out, like, okay, now that I've started this mess, who do I want to be in this scenario? And so what I did is I just sipped on the sangria a little bit. I drank probably half of it, and then I made sure I drank water, and then I just kind of nibbled on some chips. I didn't go overboard, but I was a little mad at myself that I did the thing in the first place. And I had to coach myself and go, there is no arrival where you're not going to mess up and make decisions that you're kind of not super happy with. And for whatever reason, I got caught in it. But I want to give you the tools that I generally use, and I even did use in this moment, that will help that from happening less and less. So the first is the power lead, and this is about going into it high vibes. Instead of feeling negative about it, it's easy to, when people make comments and when you are going to be around people who normally eat very different than you, it is very easy to walk into it with anxiety or like, how am I going to do this? And you know what I mean? But if you can walk into it from the power lead and approach it from a very positive perspective and know the conversation before you step into it, then it makes it a lot easier. It's also a much better position to be in when you are owning the decisions that you are making. So I always recommend practicing what you're going to say before you even get there. Because what typically happens is if you say, you don't want to open Pandora's box. You don't want to say things, you don't want to say anything where someone's going to go, oh, you don't need to diet. What do you like, right? Like you just don't want to open that. So you do want to be not cautious, but you want to be aware of the words that you're using so that it's not an open-ended or an invitation for them to comment on it. And people will comment on diets. People will comment on scaling back on your food. And so you want to have some kind of one-liners in your back pocket that sound like you, that kind of close the conversation. And honestly, most of the time, I just say, I'm good. Or if I don't want to drink, and whatever reason I did that night, I'll just say, I don't drink after 6 o'clock because I don't like the way it makes me feel. I'll just drink water. I'm fine. It's good. But you want to have those one-liners that kind of close that door. Another one that you can play with is when it comes to food. It really isn't about scaling back. It's you can say things like, I'm really working on being able to enjoy the foods that I want in moderation, and it's a practice, right? Like, and you just got to find the things that work the best for you. So I highly encourage you to find the things that work. I call it the Mack-Daddy Tool. It's silence, and really just understanding that you actually don't have to explain your nutritional choices to anybody. And I know that that can be, it's easier said than done. I get it too. Trust me, I get it. People judge what I eat all the time. They're always looking like, what's Jen eating? But you just get to a place where you're like, I don't care. I don't, generally speaking, I just don't care what anybody thinks because I'm going to do the things that make me feel good. And I don't feel a need to explain it to anybody. Now, there are certain times that I can tell someone has a genuine interest in being better with their nutrition. And so they'll ask me questions related to that. And I don't mind answering those. But when it comes to your nutritional choices, you just have to remember that you really don't have to explain it to anybody. And that goes back to, if you don't have to explain it to anybody about what you're eating, knowing that you don't have a place to judge other people with what they're eating, even though we're as humans and we love to judge everything about other people. In my mind, what should I have done? Exactly what I planned to do. If I could go back and change it, I would have just said, I just want water. And I would have just sat there. We had a great conversation anyway. Most of it was probably in my head. for some reason, and I think it's just because, Michael and I have been having these conversations about how he needs to get more, involvement and energy from being out. We've both been working a ton, and I have been having conversations about how I need to have more quiet time. And I think it was just kind of ripe. It was right there, and trying to be in an attempt to be a good partner. I thought, and I don't like being a high maintenance person. I don't like being that person for whatever reason. And so I think that combination is what got me. And it doesn't happen very often, but it did in that moment. So if I could go back, I would have just had water. And if I would have just said, I don't want anything. I'm good. We just had some a little bit ago, and then stopped it, and then just continued the conversation that we were having, it probably wouldn't have even been a thing. I doubt that anybody would have said anything. I made it bigger than it needed to be. It was a good question. So this week, here's what I recommend that you do. Again, you want to be proactive, is to identify what your own triggers are around peer pressure, public eating, and drinking. What are they? Where do they come from? I know when I go back to Arizona, I don't do this anymore, but I used to feel very pressured to eat a certain way, kind of because the way you're brought up eating, right? Both my daughter and I, we don't drink a lot. And even then we didn't drink a lot, but we would have like one every day. It was like a thing. And it kind of oddly hit us both at the same time. Like, I don't really want to do that anymore. It's kind of dumb. So you just got to figure out like, what are your own triggers around that? Do you change your habits based on who you're with? And why? Why are you doing that? Do you judge other people's choices? What kind of judgments do you have, and why do you think you have them? Are you the person who, it's funny, I will see people doing this in the store, who will look at other people's baskets and be like, what are you doing? Like, what kind of, you know what I mean? Like, are you that person? And again, there's no judgment to it, because you have to understand, as humans, it's what humans do. It's what our brains will. If you just let your brain run wild, it's what it's going to do. The question is, can you catch it and go, hey, like, that's really none of my business. Like, knock it off. So that's what I would encourage for you to work on this week. Now we're going to move into, did I skip? I sure did. We're going to move into hunger, cravings, and energy on the road, unless you guys have questions about that. We good? Mainly? Again, it really just boils down to you being good with what you want to do and not feeling a need to explain it. The more you feel a need to explain it, the more you're going to open up to questions that make you really uncomfortable. So why travel throws you off? Number one, because your routine is disrupted, right? So anytime you're on vacation, you're doing different things, your sleep schedule's off, your routine is off, your stress levels may be lower, or they may be higher because of travel. And all of that is going to affect your hunger and cravings and the offerings that are around you. Because now you don't have the ability to plan your perfectly prepared breakfast and lunch, right? So when hunger and cravings are off and you're offered whatever, you're going to eat it. Your blood sugar turns into a big old roller coaster, right? Bigger meals with longer spaces in between, more drinks, irregular eating on trips can leave you wired and then crashing. And that's that blood sugar roller coaster that we're talking about. And then it's really understanding the difference between when you are hungry versus when you are craving. When you are, it can be hard to tell the difference between hunger and craving. Hunger happens in the belly. And so a lot of times I'll just tell my clients, like, if you're hungry, you would eat a chicken breast and broccoli. You would eat whatever because you're hungry. A craving is, if I offered you the chicken breast and the broccoli, you're like, I don't want that. I want something else. That's craving. And knowing how to surf that urge and figuring out why you're having it. So again, hunger and cravings. Hunger is felt in the gut. Cravings are felt in the head. And so if you can run just a super quick mindfulness scan, it will help you be able to tell the difference. You can also, anytime somebody comes to me and they're just like, I just feel like my eating is really off, I feel like things are just off, and the first three things I'm going to look at or ask about are protein, fiber, and water. Because if you can hit those pretty good, most of the time, the cravings, the all of that up and down and the energy being wonky won't be there. You'll be pretty even keeled. And then when you're hitting those, then you are able to intermittent sample. We've talked about that before, where you can just have the things that you want without going overboard, without overindulging. Eating more frequently instead of saving up for calories for one big meal or a night out. I see this a lot, where I don't know if you guys do this, but I see it in meal plans that come through, food logs, where somebody knows that they're going to go out for dinner, and so like they just pick all day long, and then they have just a ridiculous amount of food and drink for dinner, and they think that they're doing the right thing because that they're saving those calories for that thing, that bad dinner, and what they're doing is really messing with their blood sugar, which then messes with cortisol. And once they walk into dinner, there is no chance of moderation. They're going to eat whatever is put in front of them, right? So we want to be able to set ourselves up so that we don't have those moments, or at least that we can limit them. We do that by preemptive cheating. Like we plan the treat or the drink that you want ahead of time, so you're not white knuckling all day, and you set yourself up, right? So let me make sure that I'm getting a little protein beforehand so that I can make those decisions from a place of power instead of a place of I'm starving and I'm craving and I'm cranky. You honor cravings without judgment. They are biofeedback. They're not a character flaw. We all have these biofeedbacks. I get cravings. You get cravings. We all get them. It's just a matter of what lens you're looking through when you get them. Are you judging it, or are you going, this is just feedback? What happened? Is it lack of sleep? Is it that my breakfast was terrible? Is it that I didn't get enough protein for breakfast, or I had coffee too soon? Or like, can you actually decipher what's going on so that you can make better decisions moving forward? Lower the stress, more sleep, less intense cardio, more fun. Don't fear carbs. Like I can't tell you the number of times that a woman has gone on vacation and come back and gone, I just lost 4 pounds. What happened? And I'm like, you weren't thinking about stuff. She's like, I drank more. I ate out more. What happened? You probably slept more and you weren't thinking about all of the things all the time. So if we can put ourselves in the place of like, I'm in a better spot where I have less stress, that alone is going to help me be able to navigate this better. And then this is a big one. One of the things that I talk with my clients about all the time is if you're going to be in a deficit, be in a deficit. If you're not, you're maintenance. And be very intentional with your action according to that. I will tell you, and I always ask my clients, like if they're like, I wanna lose whatever pounds, I wanna lean out, I wanna whatever. I'll ask, what do the next 4 weeks look like? And if there's anything big, because there's always going to be something that comes up anyway. Like there's never going to be this completely clean slate. Something's going to come up. So if you know something is already there, if you know you're going to be traveling, that is not a time that we either do a deficit right before a hard deficit, or you do it during a trip. Those are the worst times to do it. You don't need to earn your trip. You don't need to be in a crazy deficit beforehand so that you can then enjoy the deficit. Remember, both under eating and overeating are stress to the metabolic system. So we want to find that place of middle ground so that you are already satisfied. Your metabolism is firing on all cylinders as you go into the vacation, so that whatever stress comes up or extra little calories comes up, it's really not a big deal. So just make sure that you're choosing those periods of time very wisely. I like to toggle. So vacation is not a deficit time. It's not the goal. It's not realistic. So you want short, intentional. I like 3 to 6 weeks, roughly. Everybody's a little bit different in terms of a deficit. I don't like big deficits. I like them for a shorter period of time, because what happens, and I've seen this time and time again, is somebody will go into a deficit, and usually around anywhere between week 3 and 5 is what I've seen pretty consistently, their brain just gets tired. And so all of a sudden, where they were, nailing everything, all of a sudden these like little snacks start creeping in, right? And so now they're not quite hitting the mark that they were before. And staying in that deficit gets harder and harder while their body is starting to adapt to that. It's actually slowing down. That's just what's going to happen, right? So keep them short and intentional. And then you slowly work your way back out. We don't swing. We slowly work our way back out. And then you go back into moderation and maintenance for 4 to 6 weeks, to let at least, sometimes even more than that, to make sure that the metabolism is reset and not full of stress. Here's a question. How would you define over under eating as terms of overall calories? 10%, 25%, 50%, or more or less? So typically what I recommend, this is a really good question, is if you are going into a deficit, I always recommend seeing where you're at now, because whatever your watch is saying not accurate, whatever, like you need to understand like where you are. And even as you're logging food, that's not going to be 100% accurate, but it will give you an idea. So let's say that you're logging food, you've been logging it for a week and you've been counting, weighing, not guessing. You're doing a great job with that. And then your weight is stable. I always recommend starting with about 250 to 300 calorie deficit from that number and then giving that at least 3 to 4 days to see how you feel. Because what will happen is if it's working, you will notice a little bit of hunger starting to creep in. You will notice that you are a little bit more tired than normal. And that is pretty much has to happen in the beginning because that's your metabolism understanding that it's in a deficit and it's basically having to eat itself. And it's trying to tell you in a quiet voice, hey, could you give me more food? We want the quiet voice. We can deal with the quiet voice. It's when it starts to roar that it's harder to be able to follow through on. So I always recommend somewhere around 250, 300 calories. And then you kind of go, okay, like then you're basing your biofeedback on and your results at the same time. So let's say that I put myself in a 300 calorie deficit and my exercise is the same. And I notice that I'm a little bit hungry, I'm a little bit tired, but it's not anything that I can't manage, it's doable. I would keep going with that. And then what I would do is I would wait until either I started to get too much kickback, like I can't, my body doesn't like this, or I hit a plateau or where my body is no longer responding. And by that, I mean at least 2 to 3 weeks. The scale not moving for a week means nothing. You got to wait 2 to 3 weeks doing what you're doing. And then it's like, okay, if it's not working, then maybe I can, and this is where you're going to toggle, and everybody's a little bit different on what they prefer. At that point, if my body is not responding anymore, then I go, okay, I need to spread that gap. We've talked about that before, right? Because what happens is if I put myself in a 300 calorie deficit, my body is going to basically, my metabolism is going to down regulate to meet that. And that's why you hit that plateau. So then you go, okay, I've got to spread that gap again. How am I going to do that? Am I going to eat just a little bit less? Or am I going to move a little bit more and burn a few more calories, or a combination of both? And if you ask yourself that question, you know which one you would do.
So, Jen, I don't think I phrased that question very well in the chat. So, when you're talking about under eating or overeating, so let's say I had, for the sake of simplicity, a 2,000 calorie a day baseline that I roughly was shooting for. So, if one day I have 2,200, is that considered overeating, or is that just kind of had a big day? Whereas if I,
yeah. You'll have a range. You will always have a range. So, and that range is going to be probably 200, 250, sometimes 300 calories. The metabolism is not that static. It is not that sensitive to having there's too much going on, guys, in this system for the metabolism to be exact numbers. Does that make sense? So you're always going to have a range. So if your goal is 2,000 and you kind of go to 2,200, like 20, I would play with that 2,000 to 2,200 and see how your body adapts to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So so that wouldn't be considered necessarily overeating, but if I had a 3,000 calorie day, because I, went out for the whatever, that would be a significantly overeating day.
Correct. Correct. Once you get around that 400-500 under or over mark based off your baseline, and again, that's also dependent upon activity, right? Like if you upped your activity that day, then that affects it. But if there's no major change in what you're doing, somewhere around that 400 to 500 calories is where it will start. Now, could you get away with that for a day or two? Yes, because the metabolism is not that sensitive. Could you get away with that kind of overeating or undereating over a longer period of time? You're going to start to get kickback in some form. Does that make sense, Heather?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was a good question. So that's kind of the toggle. Hopefully that makes sense in terms of like how you guys would do that. So the toggle approach really it's about netting sustainable results instead of short-term quick results, because and you guys have heard this too, the faster that you take it off, the faster you'll gain it back and it will rebound. It's true. The metabolism will slow down, and the second that you go back to eating anything reasonable, you're going to gain it back. So you want slow and steady so that you learn how to implement the lifestyle that keeps you where you need to be. I thought it was really interesting, and I don't think she's on here. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing. Oh, I won't give her name, but she was one of the ladies that came to the in-persons this week, and she shared. She was like, "I'm really proud of myself because now this whole time, I don't even know how long it's been that she and even actually went on a trip, and before she left, she spent months like getting her protein down, getting water down." Hitting her strength trainings a couple times a week. Like she had these markers that in the beginning were really hard. And she and I had numerous conversations where she was like, it's not working and I'm frustrated, and just kind of getting those things down. And then she got them. Like it became kind of second nature. And even when she went on her trip, like it was still second nature. And she came back and she was like, I tested myself this last week and she went back and logged like exactly what she's been eating. And she's like, I'm still hitting at least 120 grams of protein. I'm still hitting my water. I'm still hitting like the numbers where I need to be hitting. And it's not hard. I'm not having to think about it. That's what we want. That's the goal. So hopefully that's helpful. Any questions that you guys have?